Welcome to another edition of the Cannabis Insurance Journal. I am your cannabis insurance specialist, Tony, in the state of Ohio. And today we're going to go over a quick review or an in-depth explanation for insurance premiums and rates for the cannabis industry. So we're going to answer some basic questions today about how rates are determined, how to tell if you have bad coverage, the areas of coverage, and the things that are most important to your particular industry. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So the first question you may ask is, how do we generate the statistics needed to determine the rates? Well, as you well know, insurance relies upon the law of large numbers and statistics in order to predict the frequency and value of insurance payouts and then predict a premium rate that will keep the insurance company in business. Okay. With respect to the cannabis insurance company, with respect to cannabis insurance, while cannabis insurance is, for the most part, a new industry, what happens is that they are able to look at the statistics from other comparable industries, greenhouse industries, or crops that are grown in greenhouses, such as cilantro, basil, and parsley, and look at those insurance rates and losses for those particular industries and use those and apply those to the cannabis industry. So they use, because this is a new industry, they use the rates and the averages and the statistics from other plants that are grown within greenhouses to determine those rates. Okay, now let's go to the second section of the second question, rather. The retail side of the industry when it comes to insurance. The risks of cannabis resemble that of let's say, a jewelry or a convenience store. The biggest risk, of course, as I told you before, is theft and burglary. That is a high risk in the industry because cannabis is a portable item like cash or jewelry. Okay, and they insure, or the cannabis industry insures a retailer like one may insure a 7-Eleven or a jewelry store. It's also recognized that dispensaries are also growers. That some dispensaries are also growers. Okay, and by analyzing each business on an individual basis, they can also determine risks and rates for each individual business and or dispensary. So now the question is, what are the signs of inadequate or bad coverage? One example is that, an average vertically integrated grow or dispensary will generate about 2 to 2.5 million per year in revenue. That's based on the statistics. Now, if you have a multiple grow operation of that nature paying about a $6,000 a year premium, insurance premium, that's a big red flag. If you're only paying $6,000 for a multi-million-dollar business, there's no way you're being covered. Based on the estimates and the statistics, the amount is approximately about 1.3 to 1.9% of your business revenue. That should cover your premium for a year of fully comprehensive insurance. That includes general liability, property, tenants improvement coverage, crop insurance, product liability, and the like. So if you're running $1 million business, you should expect a premium somewhere in the neighborhood of between $13,000 to $19,000 a year. Okay. Additionally, I should also let you know, if you're relying on landlord-tenant insurance, it's incredibly unlikely that you're covered there. Most insurance that landlords purchase specifically deny coverage in the event that anything is deemed illegal by the federal government. And as you well know, cannabis is still a Schedule I drug on the Controlled Substance Act list held by the federal government. In the event that something happens, that claim will be denied under the landlord's tenant's insurance policy. Both you and the landlord will be left with nothing. So I know that the next question is, okay, what do you guys do with the premiums you receive? Well, a set amount goes back to pay any possible claims or cover any claims that you may have, which is about 10 to 20%. The rest of the money is usually moved into a variety of investments to increase the insurer's overall profit margins, which enables them to pay out claims. The profit margin also helps to ensure that the insurance company can stay in business. Okay, it is estimated that 80% of the industry is underinsured or uninsured. But as we start to see more businesses get into the cannabis industry, expect the premium rates to gradually drop. Okay, so now the question is, okay, do you guys talk with a lawyer? Well, we generally talk to lawyers in a third-party capacity, Okay, so that's for specific parts of an insurance policies. In particular, lawyers are, consulted about tax liability, franchising, workers' compensation, real estate, investment, and directors and officers insurance. The reason that insurance companies speak with lawyers is because if something needs to be removed in a later policy, they want to make sure that they don't have to turn around and add it back by a writer. By consulting with outside lawyers, they can make sure that they eliminate redundancies and strange portions of policies, to make everything more understandable and more plain and explicit to the client. Okay, so the next question becomes, what are some factors that will alter insurance rates? Certain things, like when insuring a grower, a building type doesn't matter nearly as much as the quality or construction of the building. For example, a well-built greenhouse with protection against hail will often have a better rate than a shoddy or poorly held together warehouse. Construction materials, designs, and more of these things go into consideration when you're talking about rates with respect to property insurance. Another obvious factor is revenue. The more product a company is working with, the more sales it makes, the more it will need to be covered by insurance, and therefore a higher premium will be exacted. The larger the company, the larger the cost, is the way the saying usually goes. Okay. They also look at the security measures put in place. Do you have cameras, a guard, or a dog, or something there to mitigate any possibility of loss? They also look at how you manage your day-to-day operations. Are there any efficiencies? Are there risks in the normal day-to-day operations? Are the floors kept clean? Are they constantly wet? Is there adequate workers protection in place? Is there safety equipment? And is that safety equipment accessible? All these factors play a role in determining your insurance rates. Okay, so now the question is, how does the issue of cannabis being federally illegal affect insurance? Okay, so one of the ways, I would say, fortunately, it really doesn't matter, because insurance is regulated on a state-by-state basis, meaning that every state has its own rules regarding insurance. If a state is involved in legalizing cannabis, the federal government lets the state do its thing, as long as it has measures in place to regulate the cannabis industry. As you well know, in 2013, the Cole Memo, which was published by the Obama administration, left marijuana largely to the states, as long as there were rules and regulations in place to make sure that the whole thing was done legally. Okay, so eventually we're just going to have to wait for the federal government to play catch up with the rules to the cannabis industry with respect to insurance in the cannabis industry. So now let's hit on, finally, what are some unique problems in the cannabis industry. Besides banking, of course, cannabis growers and dispensaries usually have a problem obtaining banking services because, of course, it is a predominantly cash-based business. Another problem that people may be unaware of, or that growers or dispensaries may be unaware of, is bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a protection granted by the federal government in the event that a person or business cannot repay its debt. However, because bankruptcy is a protection granted by the federal government, that means that cannabis businesses cannot claim bankruptcy. And they cannot claim bankruptcy, again, because of the aforementioned illegality of being designated as a Schedule I drug on the Controlled Substances Act. So bankruptcy courts will not discharge criminal or fraudulent judgments. Thus, you have no protection in bankruptcy courts. So if you or your business gets sued, you're on the hook regardless of whether you can pay or not. Okay? Often this lack of protection can reach beyond the business itself. Any investors in the businesses can also be targeted for lawsuits, and they face the same lack of bankruptcy protection as well. This also applies to landlords who knowingly rent their property to cannabis growers or dispensaries. Insurance is there to help fill in some of that gap and protect against some of those losses. One of the services is, of course, covering an insured for lawsuits. this could protect you against bankruptcy. All right. This has been another edition of the Cannabis Insurance Journal. My name is Tony, your cannabis insurance specialist in Ohio. If you have any questions, we're in the Miami Valley area. We can be contacted at 937-247-6660. You can contact us by email at ohiocannabisinsurance@gmail.com, or you can contact me through the website at ohiocannabisinsurance.org, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe the videos as well as the articles. Until next time, have a happy holiday season and stay safe.